Oh, okay, Assalamu alaikum. I'm back. I assume that everyone is back. No sound. I think I. Can you hear me now? Hello? Okay, good. Good, thanks. All right, so let's continue. Now, this was what I just spoke about before the break. One of the thoughts, again, this is the false political thinking about the wealth production versus distribution. So we talked about the distributing the wealth and producing the wealth, and I mentioned the hadith, أنتم أدرى بشؤون دنياكم, you know your regular life. So today, what the problem is that the people, especially in the capitalist economy, or that's economic system of capitalism, they do not distinguish between the distribution of wealth and making the wealth. So here I make the example here while in the break. So they consider 10% increase in wealth production. Let's say they call it economic growth or wealth production, 10%. But we have also 10% more poverty, which means 10% of the people became poor or they lost their jobs. Actually, they consider the production increase because probably we fired 10% of our workforce without employment, so they went into poverty, and the money that we were paying them as employees became part of our increase in our productivity. So it's a false thought. And why? Because they look at the economy. A good economy is the one that has higher production. But we said that the production has nothing to do with the part of the economy that has to do with the economic policy or the economic thoughts. It has to do with production, with tools, with the techniques, with knowledge, etc. But the wealth distribution is the important. This 10% on increase, where did they go? Probably they went to only one person or two persons or 1% of the total population. So that is a thought. That's how the political thinking in economy would warrant us to understand these major concepts. What is wealth distribution? What is wealth production? What constitutes part of the policy and the system? What constitutes part of the knowledge and the productivity? So that's one. The second one, which I will look at, is the false political economy thoughts, like relative scarcity. And these ideas and thoughts about the relative scarcity of resources here. The claim that they use or they have, which is a thought produced by Adam Smith and later on carried by his follower Ricardo, about the relative scarcity. What, in a nutshell, what they claim is, look, in our resources, I have 2 loaves of bread, and I have 3 people in my society. Each one of these people demands 1 loaf. So here we will allocate this loaf of bread to this guy. Okay, so it becomes visible for all of us. And this one here we allocate it to this person. Okay. So we allocate this loaf of bread to this one. So here is 1, number 2, number 3. So in this distribution, we'll say the person number 2 will sleep hungry. Why he would sleep hungry? Because no more bread. Simple. The bread gathered number 1 and number 3, number 2 was not able to get, and there are no more resources. And here their claim is, now even today at this time, if he has even the money and he has the ability to get it, but there is no more bread, the resources are less than the needs. That's the relative scarcity, means the resources, which are in this case the 2 loaves of bread, are less than the requirements. We need 3 of them. 2 will be able to eat and 1 will not be able to eat. So this is the essence of the relative scarcity.
About the word, look, man, can you treat dinner today?
If you can mute yourself, brother.
Gee, I mean, we got to go to the most expensive place, and we gonna find what's the best for you. Lobster, shrimp, calamari, ragu, linguine with sauteed
Zayn, can you force the mute?
filet mignon, drizzled with oyster sauce from the Cayman Islands. Drizzle my snizzle. That's a cold one in the Chinese restaurant for dog.
Brother, you're unmuted.
Okay, good, thanks. Okay, so here is the idea. The idea is that's what they claim, what Adam Smith and Dave Ricardo, they claim that we will always have less resources than people who need the resources. So someone will go hungry. Someone will go hungry. Now over time, those who were able to eat the bread, they have become more powerful than number 2. And then the next day will be able to grab more than number 2. And eventually, if number 3 becomes much stronger, then he could get 2 loaves of bread and leave nothing even for number 1. So the end result here, the end result which we witness it today, is that over time less people can obtain resources and more resources go to less people. Are you surprised? Should not be, because today you have less than 1% of world population control more than 80% of world resources. Natural, because the struggle for getting the resource is going to be fierce struggle, and the more powerful will get more, and the less powerful will get poorer. So that's the formula, and we witnessed that. So this is a very grave fallacy of the current political thoughts among the capitalists. And that is, all it takes is to look, now to produce the thought. How can we arrive at this thought? We'll say, okay, they claim that the resources are ever decreasing and the needs of people are ever growing. And let's critically think about that. The resources in the world, which are the money, the products, the cars, the farms, the food, etc., they are actually growing at more and more rate. And in fact, now we'll go to what our Aqidah says about that. Our Aqidah, the Quran says that Allah Azza wa Jal created and made all the resources in the skies and in the earth available to you. سخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. He made it usable by the people, and he continues to bring to make rain so that he will produce more food for the people, and the rizq, which is the amount of wealth which can be acquired by people, is ever growing, and it's a fact. Now, that's one from Aqidah perspective. Let's look at realities. The reality is that over the last 100 years, a tendency in the West has been to throw out, so let me take this slide itself, copy it, and do here. Now I don't need this. I need to expand this guy, my resources here, and I want to have one more of this, and one more. Now, in the current systems that we live in, when those capitalists, let's call them, they notice that we still have 3 people, now I have 4 loaves of bread. Now, because I have 4 loaves of bread, then there is no competition between these guys. No competition. So 3 and 1 will not be willing to pay the same price for the loaf of bread as much as they used to pay, because now there is plenty for all. So we don't have to compete for those. So because we don't have to compete for them, there is less contention for the bread, then the price will go down here. Here we'll have price. Oops. What is that? Price may go down. Okay, so what do I do? What to do? That's what the owners of the land and the farms will ask this question, what to do? Easy. Just throw the other two loaves in the ocean. So to keep This is more resources. So they say to keep the prices the same. Now note that this guy who produced these breads, because his farm, let's say the year was so good, the rain, Allah Azza wa Jal brought so much rain, more wheat came, so we were able to make 4 loaves of bread, but we still have 3 people here. So number 3 will get 1, number 1 will get 1, but the 2 here, 2 will get them. Now because each one can get the bread without any contention, the ability to pay or the willingness to pay for the same price will go down. People will say, no, now there is enough bread, so the price will go by probably 1/2. Because the increase is 50%, the price should go 50%. So the farmer or the owner of the land now will say, oh, no way, I will not let this happen, so let me do this. I will throw this guy into the ocean. Let's bring this a little bit here. Create a room. So we'll say bring this out. And this one too. Dump into ocean. And this practice is continues to be practiced until today. Okay, so the relative scarcity actually it's not real. So let me relative scarcity here. Where do I write this? I'll write it here. And I will call this relative scarcity of resources. So now RSR is not real. It's actually it's made up. It's artificially made. Now, how can we make this conclusion? Easy. We notice what's in the market, we look at the production, and we look at the way the factories or farms, they control their production to make sure that the prices remain at the same level so they can gain more money, irrespective whether these people are going to die or not to die. They don't care. And that's what happened. So a relative scarcity of resources as an idea, not only it's false, but it's created idea. That's what Adam Smith wanted. In fact, the market to be unbalanced, between the needs of the people, how much they demand. We will introduce in the market less than the demand. If we have more in the market, we will dump it in the sea. We will hide it for next year, for some other time, but we will not put it in the market. And that's so the some people, they try to argue that look, the world has lots of resources. It doesn't take a brainer to realize and understand that the amount of land in the world that can be planted and can produce food is way beyond what the humanity can consume at any point of time. It's no brainer. The amount of mechanics tools which can be produced using the minerals in the world is way beyond what the people can consume at any point of time. Again, doesn't take a brainer. It's just a very simple thinking. All you have to do is look at the resources, count the resources, count the people, look at 100 years before, year by year, you will find that the resources are way above what the people need. So that's true. Then what's relative scarcity about? Or scarcity of resources? It's about making the resources seem to be insufficient. Hide the extra resources, dump the extra resources, don't produce more resources. If you have a farm, I remember I was once in my early young age, I stayed with a farm, big farmer family in the United States, and the person I stayed with, who was very very wealthy landowner, every year he will get from the government a list of how many acres he can plant. He used to plant corn and soybeans. So he will get, let's say he has 1,000 acres, they will tell him this year 200 acres should remain unplanted. Don't plant them. He has the capability, he has the tractors, he has the seeds, he can do that. He keep them without being planted. What's in return? They pay him. The government used to pay this person money equivalent to what he could have produced. Why? Because they wanted to keep the price average at the same level for local as well as for export, for exporting to other people. That is an artificially made relative scarcity. That's not real. So we as people, when we look at the economic system, we have to see these fallacies. We have to see the wrong thoughts. So now we can talk about the proper thoughts in Islam before we say what is a real economic political thinking or political thoughts. Now we have to see what is wrong with the current one. So this is one of the major fallacies in this regard. One more before I conclude here. I want to mention here about economic policy, society versus individuals. I already mentioned that in let me take this out. I already mentioned, let me bring here this guy, this point. This is capitalism. What they say is this evaluated as excellent economic status. Now, On the contrary, what I care about at the end of the day, because the political aqidah, political creed will say you have to cater for each individual, So in Islam, Islamic political, economic principle, let me call it, "10% increase in wealth production and 10% more poverty can be evaluated in Islam," is not can be, but is evaluated as failed economic status. Failed economic status. What we need okay. Then what is a successful economic status? The needs of each individual in the society are satisfied, is a success economic status, irrespective of the economic growth. So here is successful economic status Now, where do we know this from? We know this from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that says, let me do it in Arabic first. ما من أهل عرصة يبيتون وفيهم امرؤ جائع. I will translate in a second. إلا برئت منهم ذمة الله. ما من أهل عرصة or أيما أهل عرصة. The hadith says any community of people in any community, whether it's small or large, whether it's the village, whether it's the city, whether it's the state, whether it's the all the society, if one person goes to bed hungry, which means does not have sufficient food, Allah Azza wa Jal will be absolutely angry against these people, will not adore these people. These people will be considered sinners by Allah Azza wa Jal. So here the hadith says, let me use my own translation, whenever one person goes hungry within a community, the grace, the anger of Allah will hit this community. I'm sure many people would not like my translation, but I think this is the best way to put it so that we understand it rather than we look at it literally. Okay, so this is hadith. Let me call this hadith. And this is, although this hadith sounds very small, look at this, how many words? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 words. ما من أهل عرصة يبيتون وفيهم امرؤ جائع إلا برئت منهم ذمة الله. Or أيما أهل عرصة يبيتون وفيهم امرؤ جائع إلا برئت منهم ذمة الله. Any group or of community, when there is one hungry person, then Allah will be mad at these people. That now question comes. The question comes, what if that year we don't have enough production? Okay, that's fine. You remember Surah Yusuf, that Allah Azza wa Jalla brought Surah Yusuf for us. There is a ibrah there. When the king saw the dream and Yusuf alayhi salam explained the dream, and he said there will be 7 years of drought. You will not have any food production or very little production, so there is no production. Then what do we do? Yusuf alayhi salam, his concern was how to feed the people within these years of drought. So he took a policy. His policy is to make sure that each and everyone continues to get sufficient food, instead of wasting all of this at the time when you had plenty of it. When you have plenty of it, then you will simply may not care about the next years. So he made a plan. As long as we have some food, we have to distribute it among all, such that each and everyone gets his share. No one will go hungry. So the policy here, what we say, what is our policy in Islam, Islamic political economic principle? No one should be left behind hungry. As individual, one should be left behind hungry, or should sleep hungry, or should remain hungry, or should remain unsatisfied. Now, by the same token, you would say, can we extend that? Yes. Now, if we extend this, extend to okay, no one should be left oops, what did I do? Be left sick, ignorant, no education, without shelter, so these are the issues which are the main needs. No one should be left hungry, no one should be left sick, no one should be left ignorant without education, no one should be left without shelter. These are the basic needs for the individual, and that's the main policy. Now, there are policies, economic policies for the state itself. The state is an entity, State is an entity. The entire society is also entity, but the individuals, the policy for individuals related to the individuals. No one should remain hungry. No one should remain. So here, let me add this: hungry, sick, ignorant, or without shelter. This is the main foundations of the Islamic economic policy, and the rest are means of making this happen. As I said at the beginning, if you have a policy, just the thought would say, okay, we have this principle, no one should be left behind. In education, no one should be left behind. In hunger, no one should be left behind. In shelter, and so on. What are the mechanisms to make this happen? That is the story of when I said at the beginning here, I think the governance, where is that? Didn't I mention the state? Yes, here. The state needs to make this happen, to build the society and to build the ummah, etc. Okay? Actually here. Comprehensive implementation of the Islamic rules, build a state, so we are talking about the method. So there has to be a method to do that, and that is, we can leave this extra here for the actual mechanisms for distribution, the wealth, actual more ideas on this issue for our next class. But for now, this should be sufficient for our foundation of the Islamic political thought. Next lecture I will talk, I think, on the education policy, if I am not mistaken. But for now I will stop right here. I'm sorry for taking more time, but we started 10 minutes late, so I gave myself the privilege to regain these minutes. Thank you, everybody. Are there any questions, Brother Zain, you want to entertain with the brothers and sisters who are still around?
First of all, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, so I'm not seeing any questions in the chat right now, but yes, brothers and sisters, please send them in if you have any questions, something you'd like clarified or repeated, even. And you can turn on your mics as well at this point. Inshallah, get a question. You know, I actually have a question myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
So when did we see in Tariq al-Islam, in the history of like the Muslim world, when did we see these different, I guess this is more about policy than department.
Yeah.
But my question was about like, the Muslim, the Khalifas, Islamic governances that came after the Khulafa Rashidin. It seems they increasingly became more complex and bureaucratized. The Umayyad Dawla was not as streamlined, for example, as the Abbasids. And the Abbasids were, kind of a drop in the water compared to the level of the Uthmani Dawla. This is just like kind of from my own cursory understanding. So I was wondering if you could.
Sure. I think, look, this is a good question. Good question. When we have these thoughts, as I put here, very clear. Now, at any point during the Islamic state, from the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam until the late Ottoman state, maybe the last 50 years of the Islamic Khilafah and Uthmani, these principles, the per individuals, hunger, health, education and shelter, were absolutely covered for individuals. Now, if someone would come and probably give variations in wealth, variations meaning, or you will find that in Istanbul or in Baghdad or in Damascus at the time, there is some extravaganza wealth. There are people who are so wealthy. True, the state created an enormous opportunities for wealth, but that did not leave poor behind. See, because today I don't mind seeing the Rothschild family having trillions of dollars, but I do mind seeing Jack and Philip in the upper state in New York who don't have food to eat that day. That is the problem. The problem is not with someone becoming very rich or absolutely with lots of wealth and money, etc. But the problem is, do we still have people who cannot afford to go to the doctor, people who cannot afford education, people who do not have homes to live and they can be evicted from their homes and become homeless? That is the problem. So today when people want to attack Islam or the Muslims, they will focus on some eras where people became rich. That is not an issue. It has never been an issue. The issue has always been the poor, not the rich. It's not the fact, in fact, the communist era, they tried to reduce the wealth of all. So everybody became poor, rather than so many people become rich and no poverty. Islam comes and says, look, you can increase your wealth as much as you want. However, I as a state, I as an Islam, I as an authority, I will not allow someone here. These are the most important thing here. So I will not argue with people that, oh, where did Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik get his wealth? Okay, that's fine. He could have gotten it in a correct or incorrect manner. He would be punished for that if that happened. But the issue is, during his era, were there people who were poor? Was there poverty? In fact, even from the time of Medina, when Medina was still growing, the wealth which was in Medina was sufficient for each and every one to be in a status of living, although the amount of wealth was small. When the amount of wealth became very large during the Umayyad or Abbasi or Uthman period, still the poverty was absolutely non-existent, and the richness of the state and the society was visible. So that's not an issue at all. So the point here, brother, is we have to focus on how to respond on what to focus on from the thoughts. The issue is not, not the existence of rich people, but the existence of poor. Here is the focus.
Yeah, Humbo, I understand this part. I guess my question is more, you did answer some key points, but my question is how was this, what were the means as to how these were accomplished? That's why I was talking about the level of administration and bureaucracy, because it's obviously there were sultans and there was a wealthy class throughout all of Islamic history. But I mean, the difference is how they maintain that at least floor, or I guess bottom ceiling, the bottom floor, with that people were not falling into poverty.
Oh, because the mechanism, that's where I think if I would have time during this class, I'll talk about the mechanism of distribution. Maybe next week I will have at least one slide on that, so I don't spend too much. But the mechanism of wealth distribution and the techniques, the methods which are part of the thoughts of the Islamic Aqidah are very clear. There are about 5 main principles for wealth distribution, which guarantee that each and everyone in the society will always have sufficient to satisfy all his basic needs. So there are mechanisms, and those were never tampered with. None of the Khalifas has ever changed these rules or was slow on them or violated them, because those mechanisms have always been part of the Islamic State. And I will discuss them inshallah next time.
Inshallah. We have one question from the sister Noor, I believe.
Yes.
The question is, first of all, she's saying Jazakallahu khairan for this valuable session. Would you be covering in future sessions how the distribution of wealth differs in the Islamic system from the capitalist system, and the means by which this distribution takes place in the Islamic system? So,
I think this is
you just covered this.
This is the same question you asked a second ago, and I did answer.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, brother. Jazakallah khair, and all the brothers and sisters who stayed with us. And I will see you inshallah next week. And this video will be on Moodle through the week, within the week inshallah. Okay. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.